We are so back. Welcome to another episode of Debatable with your host, Nina. Okay, I'll be honest, saying that spiel again is really nostalgic. It's been a while, I know. If I had a penny for every time the podcast went on hiatus, I would have quite a lot of pennies. Maybe enough to buy myself a better mic because I have been at this for I think we're coming up to 6 years now. And while I am on hiatus for the podcast and I'm trying to revive it again, that's why I'm here. Hello. I have not really retired from debate. I don't think I can ever retire from debate. If you know me, you'll know that I'm still coaching on the side. I am training for an institution. I am also reaching out to different people to train them on the side. I am now also the team manager and one of the coaches for World Schools Philippines. I have been working on other debatable projects as well. In fact, we have a tournament this April. I hope you can join. You can find more details on our Facebook page and the link tree. I'll try to put it here on the description. And I've been working on a lot of personal projects that are adjacent, I suppose, to debate. So I have been making personal vlogs on my own Instagram. They're just about my daily life, but I really enjoy the act of sharing my thoughts and the things I'm going through. I think transparency is a really big value or principle for me. I've also been working on a blog on the side. This blog is also about my debate musings and thoughts. The reason it's on a blog and not on the podcast is because the things I deal with there are a little bit less educational and more reflective. So if you're interested on how I think, and if you're interested about that side of debate besides all the educational stuff, check it out. Why not? Maybe you'll like how I write. Maybe you won't, but I would really appreciate if you checked it out anyway. And basically, it's been a year, I think, since our last upload or my last upload. A lot has changed, and I'm finally ready to revive what I started back in 2019. And with all that, I want to start with a bit of a confession. And that confession is, it's been very hard for me to revive this again. So if you don't know the circumstances, I am now going to be hosting this podcast alone. A lot of things are changing. And I think what really made me struggle to just sit down and pull out my really old mic, which I hope to update soon, is I don't know how to start again. I have been out of the podcasting game for quite a while. A lot of new content creators are popping up and I really, really love them. And I'm very happy that this community is finally getting the accessibility I've always been striving for, and I think that the community deserves. And I think the clean slate is what's intimidating me the most. I'm going to do a different approach now, obviously, now that I'm running this podcast alone. I'm still going to have the fun episodes and the guest speakers and all the educational ideas, of course, but I think the most important thing is I'm trying to put less pressure on myself. The pressure I have is a pressure for perfectionism. If I'm not happy with how the audio quality turns out, for some reason, I just drop the entire thing. I tell myself I'm going to start over again the next day. And then next thing I know, it's a few weeks later and I still haven't recorded. So I'm trying to take things a little bit more casually, I guess. A little bit more extemporaneous, less scripting, less preparation. And to start this all off, I want to also discuss how I've been doing and how I plan on really starting over. The reason I wanted to do this as my first episode for season 2, if you want to call it that, is because I think a lot of people are in my position. Not being a dinosaur who is semi-retired and trying to get back necessarily, but I think it's very common for a lot of people to either, 1, not know where to start, or 2, maybe they're already some way in their debate journey and they've hit a roadblock. Maybe you're a speaker that has plateaued in the past few months or maybe even years, and you don't know how to break the performance ceiling that you have set for yourself. And I want to sympathize here because I'm on the same boat. As a coach, one thing that is required of me is to always be active in the game, one way or another. I'm not highly competitive in debate anymore, but I do need to show up. I do need to know what the new rules are. I need to keep up to date with all the news, what the motions and topics might be. I need to know what the debate trends are because obviously if I want the people I'm coaching to do well, I need to know what everyone else is doing. I need to know how people are judging. I need to know what's popular, what's not effective anymore, all that. And trust me, given how long I've been in this sport, I joined back in 2013. I think I was a senior in high school at the time, or third year high school. No, I was probably a senior or entering my senior year. And it's been more than 10 years. And a lot has changed. And I'm at this point where I'm struggling to keep up. And I want to remind you that, one, that's normal. That always happens. I think no matter when you start debate or if you took a little break and you came back, there will be some adjustment. Plateaus are very normal. It's very normal for you to feel lost at one point. The second thing is, there is a way out though. Given how often I've revived my own debate career from the ashes that is my very old CV, I hope that you can find it in yourself to also believe that you can make this comeback that you might be craving for. Or maybe it's not like a big comeback that you're after. You just want to be competing again in a way that you used to. It is very possible. And the third thing is, it's not going to be easy though. You can do it, but it's going to be a lot of work. But I think it's going to be fun work. This episode is going to be how to start over. And it's less for people I'm giving advice to necessarily. It's not only me giving people advice, because I'm going to be doing these for myself as well. As a coach, as someone trying to get back into the competitive scene, as someone who is running a debate podcast that needs to be up to date, these are also the things I'm going to be working on so that I can get back out there and hit the ground running. So, there are basically 3 things I plan to do this year to not just revive this podcast that I love so much, but to revive my entire debating career, I suppose. I don't want to assume my entire career is dead. It just took a little nap, right? And I think that's the way you should view it as well. The first thing I'm going to do more moving forward is I'm going to show up. And when I say show up, that means I'm going to attend more trainings. I'm going to join some competitions if I have free time. And I say that because, I also have work. So if I have free time, I'm going to dedicate that to honing my craft because that also helps with my work, given that I'm a coach. I'm also going to interact a little bit more with the community. A lot of new people have joined. If this is your first episode hearing the podcast, hi, welcome. It's nice to meet you. I hope we can become friends. I hope I get to see you around. Please tell me if you've listened to the podcast. I've had so many instances where I'm just casually conversing with someone and then they reveal to me after a while that they've been so intimidated to come up to me because they know me from the podcast. Just say hi, okay? I want to make friends. I want to meet different people. Feel free to message me or add me on Facebook or whatever. I am very invested in the careers of many people at the same time, even those I don't personally know. I think seeing people be happy in the sport just kind of motivates me to keep coming back and to keep going. And I hope that does the same for you. If you show up to trainings, if you show up to competitions, if you show up and become active in your own community, maybe this is your institution, maybe this is cross-training chats. And I know those are really popular now. People have Discords that are dedicated to setting up spars, regardless of your institution. I think those are really fun. You're going to meet a lot of friends. And honestly, all of the learnings I've made in debate happen in those in-between moments. They don't always happen in a debate round. They don't always happen during a competition. Most of the time, they happen when I'm having casual conversations with people and we decide, for some reason, like nerds, to start talking about debate as a sport, to talk about rounds we've done, to talk about arguments we really liked or arguments that we weren't very proud of and we want to know how to improve. So show up. You have no idea how useful and how much that is going to not just train you, but give you the motivation to keep going. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And if you want, let's do it together. The second thing is I want to focus a little bit more on isolating and targeting different skills. So this one's a little bit more technical. I think a lot of debaters usually get overwhelmed with the amount of things that they need to do. Sure, you are only speaking for 7 minutes or 8 minutes or however long, depending on what debate format you are part of. And it can get very overwhelming having to improve all those things all at once. We are consistently told, and I guess in the circuit, it's not, it's unavoidable that we think of the 7 minutes as one big thing, but that's not true. I'm going to isolate and target different skills moving forward for myself and hopefully in addressing and teaching this podcast. And what I mean by that is you, for example, maybe train yourself for 1 day or 1 week if you have the time just to improve on your framing. I'm going to have a different episode on this probably, and that's going to be part of like a more robust and more targetive series. But for now, try to break down your speeches into the different components. You can isolate and target your frame. You can isolate and target your argument, your rebuttals, your word economy, and even your time management. Those last two, I feel like a lot of debaters forget to train. And this is because as our ideas get more and more complex, the more we become smart, the more information we absorb, we don't tend to do the work anymore to make them palatable to other people. There's this temptation to sound as smart as possible, and that's why we lean towards big debate words. That's why we lean towards very complex theories and principles. And while that's great, you know, debate is an academic sport after all, it is still about public speaking. So I'm also going to train how I present my ideas. In fact, I constantly train this because I teach younger kids how to debate, not just people in high school or college anymore. I even teach those who are in grade school how to debate. But I think no matter where you are in your own career, you have to train yourself to present your ideas as if you are talking to someone with minimal training. I feel like that's the best way to police yourself. That's also the best way to kind of course correct and check out if you are doing something right, if you are getting lost in translation, all those different things. If you even want, right, once you start isolating these different things, you can break them down further. If you're trading arguments, for example, maybe you can refine the titles of your arguments. Maybe you can refine the way you're organizing within the argument. Maybe you can refine what kind of information or matter you are using at any given time. So by breaking these things down, one, not only does debate and your entire speech become less daunting as a task, but you can actually feel progress happening a little bit more. When you're starting out in debate, obviously the growth is kind of exponential at the start because you're learning all these different things, you're applying them all at once. But after you reach a certain point, it's kind of hard to get that same level of improvement as fast as you did. You're going to have to take it a little bit slower. You're going to have to be a little bit more deliberate. And that's honestly where I'm at right now. I'm at a debate plateau. I think the last time I competed was 2013. Not 2013. 2023. I think the farthest I got was the grand finals of the Shanghai International Debate Open, which is pretty good, right? But I feel like since then I've gotten really rusty. And instead of just doing speeches over and over again, given how well-versed I am at debate already, admittedly, I'll have to really break down the components and see what's going wrong in each part. because even as the debate scene grows and everything evolves, I'm sure each of those parts have evolved as well, and I will be overwhelmed if I try to improve it all in one go. So I'm going to isolate and target those different skills. So that's the second thing. A second piece of advice of how to start all over again. Also, like the tangible steps I'll be taking. The third thing is, I think we need to work a little bit more on dissecting speeches. Not just our own, but the speeches of others as well. We now have so much information online. We have multiple debate recordings. They're all in HD now, unlike back in my day where it was just like a dingy camcorder that was like pixelated at certain parts and things were cutting out. So take advantage of all the resources that you have now. And don't just watch, and try not to just copy paste the parts that you like. You need to dissect why those ideas worked in those particular rounds. A big mistake I see a lot of my students making is that they saw this argument or this idea work for this particular round, and they feel, oh, if I use that as well, then maybe I'll get the same result. And I wish it were that simple, but the reality is it is not. Some people win rounds, some people lose rounds. Even those that have consistent championships will have some rounds where they're not performing at their best. And the reason that is because debates are contained within that 2 hours that you're doing it. And the situation and the landscape of that round will always be different. Everyone might be doing the same motion, but how it turns out in each room will be very different, slightly. I'm not saying all the arguments are going to be different and people are debating in completely different worlds, but there's going to be a difference in their execution. There's going to be a difference in how they're framing the debate. There is going to be a difference in what they are prioritizing. So when you are watching a video, try to take the ideas out of that particular debate round. Try to see why it's working. Try to analyze when it might not work as well. Even teams that win certain rounds, that won't mean that no matter where you put them, those ideas will work out and give them the same outcome. That's just not how debate works. If it was how it worked, I think a lot of people would have been bored of the sport by now. But it's a dynamic game. Everything will always be changing. So, to prepare yourself, give yourself the basic tools. Try not to copy-paste everything verbatim, even if it's tempting. And I know everyone has that speech that they almost memorize to heart, or their intros are so iconic that people make memes out of it. But try to look at the whole context. Why did they say that? What necessitated them to say that? Why was it working? What else could they have said? So trying to look at a round beyond just the round it exists in, and trying to see how else you could maybe translate those ideas into another motion or another theme or in a different speech. It's actually going to train your brain to remember these ideas more. That's the first thing. But second, it's also going to make it much easier for you to identify patterns in debate. I've been here for quite a while. That's an understatement. I'm like a dinosaur at this point, and I'll be honest about that. And when you're in this sport for as long as someone like me, you will recognize that there are a lot of patterns in debate. There's only so much we can talk about. I might get into this in another episode, but for now, just remember that you cannot copy-paste. There will never be the same situation, but there will be patterns, and it will be up to you to figure out what parts and what ideas to use when. So those are the 3 things I'm going to be doing this year, and maybe for the future years as I maintain my relevance, or I attempt to maintain my relevance in this sport. I'm going to show up, I'm going to isolate and target different things, and I'm going to make an effort to dissect more ideas and try to put them in my own toolkit instead of using them as copy-pasted material for other debates. So that's it. My first episode, quite rambly, I know. I just wanted it to be an honest sit-down because a lot has been going on and I'm dealing with a lot in different sides, right? I'm coaching. I want to get back into debate. I'm trying to launch my podcast again. I'm organizing a tournament. It's a lot, but I'm happy to be back. So in future episodes, I plan to go into more detail. A lot has changed since I've launched the past 100 episodes. I have grown. I have learned more. I have unlearned some habits as well. So for now, this is it. This is my hello. I hope you welcome me back. I'm very thankful if you've reached this point. I am very happy you kept on listening. It is your support that keeps me coming back. No matter how many times this podcast dies and rises again like a phoenix. So thanks for listening. I really miss this. I can't wait to get back on the ground running. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye! Ding ding! I lost the file for the bell sound. I'll try to look for it again. Sorry!